What's up guys, I'm Simon here with Z1 Off-Road, and today we're going to be installing our Utilitrack Retrofit kit on Aaron's D41 Frontier. Like a lot of the trucks out there, Aaron's truck didn't come with the Utilitrack from the factory, but we've got a kit that will install our Utilitrack channels in the exact same locations as the OEM Utilitrack would come. So I'll show you guys how to install that here in just a second. Before we get started, this is an approachable but involved install, so pay close attention, and if you have any questions at any point, give our team a call at Z1 Off-Road. You know, we're here to answer questions anytime and help you get your kit installed correctly. So yeah, I'll show you guys how to do this. So we're gonna have a lot of pieces. We've got these brackets. These are gonna essentially act as standoffs off the wall of the truck bed and space out the Utilitrack. Essentially, we've got bracket with 4 holes, bracket with 2 holes, and then a shorter bracket with 2 holes. This shorter one goes in the very back here. So just like that. And then the other one is just gonna be mirrored, so opposite of that. So the 4 bracket goes up here and the short bracket goes back here. So this one's just a little bit shorter than that one. You're also gonna see over here, kit comes with a bunch of hardware. You'll have a bunch of button head screws, a bunch of plus nuts, and some tapered screws, flathead screws. So we're gonna assemble the Utilitrack channel onto these brackets using these tapered head screws. And the reason that is because this is gonna act as a template to mark all our holes onto the wall of the truck bed. And we wanna make sure that the brackets are perfectly centered into the holes that they're being mounted with so that we can get our hole locations marked really well and exact. And then we'll pull these back out and we'll swap them with the button head screws. And what that's gonna do is allow us a little bit more tolerance so that we have a slight room for error, you know, misalignment, things like that. Just make the install a little bit more forgiving. So, like I said, we're gonna start with these. So we'll just go ahead and assemble these onto the brackets. So this is gonna be the passenger side. I'm gonna start with this shorter bracket back here. I'm just gonna assemble it. I'll leave these loose and then I'll come back in just a second with a Allen key and we'll tighten those up just a little bit. So right here we've got the longer bracket. You can see this one's longer than this one in the back and it's got some extra holes, just another way to tell it apart. Right here I've got a 5mm Allen key. That's what these guys use. All right, then we got the last 2 up here. And so you can see as I tighten this, gonna want to center it right in the middle of that hole, which is a good thing. But these won't be the screws that we use on the final installation. Like I said, these are just to sort of create a template for us to mark our holes onto the wall. Snug all these up. All right, so we went ahead and we snugged all these tapered bolts up. We've got our template created, and I'm gonna show you guys how this is gonna work. So I've got the rest of my Allen keys right here. I've got a quick clamp and paint marker, a 3/8 drill bit with a drill stop. This drill stop is super important. You want to use a drill stop. Don't ask me how I know, but actually no, I'm not even gonna mention that mistake because it's out of the question. But you wanna use a drill stop with this. If you don't, you can punch through and hit the outside of the fender and it will not look good. So drill stop. Next, we've got our Z1 Rivnut Tool. This is useful, you know, it works just fine, but I will say there are other Rivnut tools out there that are a little bit quicker to use. You know, we want everybody to have something, but if you can also use one of these guys. This is just a pull style Rivnut tool. And essentially, instead of having to turn it by hand, I can just clamp, set the Rivnut in one go. This is actually, I keep saying Rivnut, but I mean plus nuts. So these are a little bit different than normal Rivnuts. Rivnut's still kind of accurate, but these flare out much wider than a normal Rivnut would. So you'll need a plus nut specific Rivnut tool if you're gonna go out and get one. And that will speed up the installation process. But like I said, you know, I've done this with tool and I've also done this with the Z1 tool. Both are totally doable. One might be a little bit quicker. All right, so your kit's also gonna come with these nylon retaining washers for the M8 screws, the button head screws that hold the Utilitrack on. So you can use these if it makes it easier for you. It'll keep the screws from falling out as you're putting everything up and into place. But you also don't have to use them. Sometimes I actually find it easier not to, so I can actually look and see where the hole lines up. Just thread the screws in by hand. Totally up to you. That should be everything that we need. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark the holes using that template that we just created. So I got the paint marker. I'm gonna got one extra screw here. We're gonna need that in just a second. I'll grab that clamp as well. All right, so since this goes in the OEM location, you can use all your same accessories that you had before, but we've got this pulled off. We had moly panels on here. We pulled them off temporarily for the installation, but we'll put them right back on afterwards. We also pulled off these hooks, but like I said, if you want to put those right back on, you're more than welcome to. What we're gonna do for now is up here in this corner, there are 2 threaded holes. We're gonna use this one, and we're gonna go through the very outside-most hole on that front bracket, which I'll show you in just a second. I'm gonna use that as essentially a pivot point to help hold the location of the template, and then we'll mark all the holes. So I've got our Utilitrack template. You'll see on these brackets, this one and that one, there are some locating holes, but really the only one that we're gonna use is this one. You're not gonna mark and drill these outside holes. These are just locating holes. What we're gonna do, we got that threaded hole up here in the corner, and that is gonna line up with this hole, and these 2 holes, I'll mark them with the paint marker so you guys can see. There we go. So that hole and this hole, you're not gonna mark and drill these holes. That's important because you just don't need to. I'm gonna use these holes to mark and drill. These are just locating holes, so this is gonna go through here. I'm gonna put the paint marker back real quick. And I can lift this up, start the threads into that outside hole. So I got my threads started, and now I can essentially pivot the channel about this pivot point. But to hold it in place, I'm actually gonna climb over here, and I've got this quick clamp. I'm gonna hold this up down here, and this is gonna hold the other side for us. I'm gonna run and grab a measuring tape, and I'm gonna set this to be about 1 1/8 off of this edge right here. So it seems like, you would just make it parallel to this edge, but it's kind of weird how they manufactured the truck bed. This edge actually has a subtle taper to it, so we know that this just needs to be 1 1/8 from the very end, and then we'll end up in the right location. So that's how we're gonna do it. This is really easy. Just gonna crawl this up. And there it is, 1 1/8. So our Utilitrack is held in place with our screw in the front and our clamp in the back. We set the height of it where we want it, and now we're gonna mark the holes on the bottom edge so that we can drill and set our plus nuts. So I'm just gonna tighten this up just a little bit more. So we're gonna mark this hole and this hole and this hole. There's another one up here that we can't see just yet, so we're gonna mark what we can, and then we're gonna pull the channel off. We're gonna use the individual brackets lined up to the holes that we marked and mark the remaining hole. This is important, so I'm just gonna take my time and get a nice circle in there. All right, and I don't need to do that one. One more. All right, so those are the holes that we can see and mark right now. But we're gonna take this off, we're gonna take our template back apart, and then we'll have all the individual brackets so we can line up to those holes that we just marked and get the remaining ones. So we'll do that real quick. All right, so now we'll set these screws aside and pull this whole thing apart. Sweet, so I'm gonna take these screws, go put them somewhere safe, and then grab our brackets and mark the rest of our holes. All right, so you guys can see we've got the holes that we just marked, and we've got one more hole to mark that we couldn't get to before. Size this up carefully. I'll draw one more. That's that. So next one in line, this is the taller bracket. Line it up to those 2 holes on the bottom. You can see that. Well, same deal on this one. That's it. We got all our holes marked. If you get paint marker anywhere you're not supposed to, you can just use some rubbing alcohol and I'll take it back off. Yeah, it looks good. Now we can either do that for the other side, but we're actually gonna complete this whole half of the install before we move on to the other side. So I guess center punch these holes, we'll drill them out, install the plus nuts, and then mount the brackets, mount the Utilitrack, and move on to the next side. Now that we've got our holes marked, we're gonna go ahead and we've got a center punch, and I'm just gonna put it right in the middle of these circles. This is important just because, you know, we want these holes to end up right where we marked them, and this will keep the drill bit from walking, you know, when we start to drill. So recommend using a center punch. You can go ahead and do that to the rest of them. All right, holes are punched. We've got our 3/8 drill bit with the drill stop on it. That's important. Definitely use a drill stop. If you don't have one of these clamp ones, you can cut a section of pipe to length, just so that just a little bit of the shank is exposed, and that'll keep you, from drilling too far. All right, so I got safety glasses, got a drill stop, we're ready to go. Here it is. All right, one last thing. Drill stop. I also really like using a cobalt drill bit for this because the cobalt bits will drill steel repeatedly a little bit better than the black oxide or titanium would. The cobalt bits are a little bit easier to break, so be careful, but they do drill steel a lot better in my opinion. So all right, so we're just gonna do that 31 more times. 31. All right, so we got 2 holes drilled. We're ready to do the rest. Be patient during this. You can only do it one time, so be patient. But here we go. One more. Cool. So I'm a little sweaty now. We've got 16 holes drilled in the side of the truck bed, and it went really well. So you can see the drill stop kind of will mar up the paint a little bit. So we've got a touch-up pen, and we're gonna clean that up. That'll also keep the holes from rusting if it gets rained on or anything like that. And then once that dries, we're gonna put the brackets on. Actually, no, we're gonna set the riv nuts, and then once that dries, we'll set the riv nuts. Set the plus nuts. So we just got done drilling the holes for the first Utilitrack to go on. In the areas where the drill stop marked up the paint, we've got a touch-up pin that we're planning on using anyways to keep from rusting if it gets rained on. So we're gonna touch up a few areas and then let that dry. We'll set the plus nuts in place, and then we should be able to install the first Utilitrack on the passenger side. So yeah, we'll get to it. All right, so we just got done drilling the holes, and you can see the drill stop kind of marked up the surface just a little bit. This is all gonna get covered up, but we don't want any moisture to get trapped in here and cause any rust. So what we're gonna do is take a black Nissan paint pen. You can get these on our website, or really just any paint pen will do the trick, or oil-based paint. And we're gonna paint this just to keep it from causing any corrosion. It's kind of satisfying. All right, so the first plus nut, I'm gonna show you guys how to set it with our Z1 Rivnut Tool. Then I'm actually gonna switch over and use this guy for the rest of them just to speed things up. So first thing, take this, I've got the plus nut set here on the shank of the bolt that runs through all this. And to get this to expand, the way this works, I take a 17mm wrench. I'm gonna pin it up against the surface, and then I'm gonna put the 14mm socket on the back of this, and I'm going to tighten it. So I'm gonna clockwise. And as I do that, this bulb is gonna flare out. Seat this on the back side. Now, this takes some level of discretion when you're setting these. It is possible to over tighten them. So what you're kind of looking for is, it's gonna be hard to pull at first. There's gonna be a lot of resistance when it's in this stage, but as this flares out, it's gonna get easier, and then it's gonna get harder again. So once it starts to get harder again, that's about when you're gonna let off. And you can check it and make sure it's seated all the way. If it's not, you can always seat it more, but once you just don't wanna pull. Tightening it, right now it's pretty hard to turn. It's not that bad, but now it's starting to get easy. I'm trying to keep this pressed right up against the surface of the truck bed while I do this. Right now it's starting to get a little harder. Now it's pretty hard to pull, so I'm gonna stop. Take this off. And actually, Just to relieve some pressure off this, I'm gonna go the opposite direction. I'm gonna go left. And then now I should be able to thread this out by hand. There it is. All right, so now we've got our full style plus nut tool. Thread the plus nut on until it seats up against that. Don't have to get it super tight. Pull that through. Now I'm just gonna pull back on it. This might have to do this in 2 pulls, so it's still loose. You can see it moving. So I'm just gonna tighten this up. I'll do that again. And once it gets a little bit harder, so right about there, it's a little bit harder to pull. I'll let off. So you can see it's still moving around just a little bit, so I'm gonna seat it just a little bit more. Nice. Oh, that made that a lot faster. So we're gonna keep doing that. All right, so we just set all the not rib nuts.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Plus nuts. So we just set all the plus nuts for the passenger side, and now we're ready to bolt up our brackets with the button head screws. We've got some long M6 button head screws, and then from there, we'll bolt the Utilitrack to to those brackets with the M8 Utilitrack hardware kit. Those are the button head screws. All right, so we are ready to bolt up our brackets. So we've got our shorter one. That's the one that doesn't have the extra holes. That goes back here in the very rear section. These M6 Allen head screws are going to be a 4mm Allen key. Got all those started by hand. I'm gonna move on to the next one, then I'll come back at the end with the 4mm and tighten all those up. Next one, this is the taller one that does have the extra holes in it. All right, next one, we got this big bracket. All right, last one. All right, so now we got all the screws started just by hand. I'm gonna go grab a 4mm Allen key and just snug those up, and we'll be able to put our track on. So got a 4mm on our electric ratchet. That's just gonna go a little bit faster, but I gotta be careful not to over tighten these. Is that right? This is a 4.5mm. I don't know why that exists, but it's not the right tool for the job. We got a 4mm socket. Sweet. So we're just about ready to install the Utilitrack on the passenger side. So we've got a hardware kit that comes with this. So this is a flange nut, obviously, but we'll throw this washer on here for good measure, get some extra support, and drop this through here. And we've got a nice retaining washer that goes on the back. So we'll slip that on. And now our screw stayed in place for us. Nice. All right, so we've got all our screws kind of loosely held in place with these retaining washers. These are gonna be a 5mm Allen head. Got it on our electric ratchet. So we'll just snake this up in place. All right, so we just finished installing the first half of the Utilitrack retrofit kit. It went really well. We've got a little bit of a mess to clean up. You know, we got some metal shavings and then a few marks from the paint marker, so I'll just take some alcohol, wipe those off, take a shop vac and suck up all these metal shavings, and we'll show you guys what it looks like. All right, so we just wrapped up the passenger side of the Utilitrack install. It looks great, feels great, not going anywhere. So we're gonna repeat everything, the exact same process on the driver's side, and should be done. All right, so we just got done installing the Utilitrack kit in Aaron's Frontier. The install went great. These are going to be super strong, super useful to tie things down. You know, he's got a lot of stuff to move around. And if you do too, if you've got a Frontier without Utilitrack and you want to fit it with our Utilitrack kit, check it out at z1offroad.com.